All right, let's kick off another deep dive. Today we're going to get into Reggie Campbell.
Oh, cool.
This guy's super interesting. Like, he's made a real impact in the business world,
Yeah.
but also in like the faith community too. So we've got excerpts from his book
Okay.
about my father's business.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the endorsements for it are really cool.
Oh, wow.
And it's not like your typical business book.
Yeah.
You know?
I'll say, yeah.
Like, it's about finding real purpose in your work,
Okay.
but by connecting your faith in your career.
Interesting.
So get ready to like rethink your whole Monday to Friday grind.
I love it. What's really striking about Reggie Campbell is that he's not just some guy giving advice, you know? He's really lived it.
Yeah.
He's had a ton of success as an entrepreneur.
Like how so?
Well, he's founded multiple companies.
Really?
One of them had over 1,300 employees.
Why?
And he even won High Technology Entrepreneur of the Year in Georgia.
Oh, wow. Impressive.
But here's the thing that's super compelling. He really brings his faith into every single part of his work.
See, that's what I'm curious about.
Yeah.
Because he's not just like a business guru who's slapping a religious label on things, right?
Right. Exactly.
Like, how does his faith actually show up in his work?
Well, his journey is kind of different than you might expect. You see, he climbed that corporate ladder at AT&T.
Like the big telecom company.
Yep, that's the one. But even while he was climbing that ladder, he felt this growing disconnect between his faith
Yeah.
and his daily work life.
I could see that tension between like your Sunday self and your Monday self.
Totally. And he even admitted in his book,
Oh, yeah.
he said, the idea of being in ministry at work was something I had shied away from.
That internal struggle.
Yeah,
It resonates with so many people,
I know, right?
you know?
Mm-hmm.
Feeling like faith is separate from work. What did he do about it?
So he actually took this huge leap of faith.
He did.
He did. After this really profound spiritual experience he had,
Okay.
he decided to leave AT&T to start a consulting firm focused on teaching biblical principles in business.
Whoa. So like leaving a secure corporate gig to pursue something way different.
Right. Exactly.
So he goes all in on this whole merging faith and work thing.
He does.
But then I read that he ends up going back to the corporate world. That seems like a step back almost.
I know, right? But listen to this. He says, God was faithful to bring me back to these work environments because that's where effective ministry can occur.
So he sees the workplace not as like a distraction from faith,
Yeah,
but as an actual mission field.
exactly. It's like this totally different perspective.
Right. It's so refreshing.
Yeah.
Because we're so used to hearing work described as, you know, that necessary evil. Like that quote, life is 2 periods of play separated by 40 years of work.
I hate that one.
Right. But Campbell's saying work is not a curse.
Yeah,
It can actually be this place to live out your faith and find real meaning.
exactly. He reminds us that work was part of God's plan for humans.
Really?
Even before the fall. It's not an afterthought.
Yeah.
He says, work is not a curse for Christians.
Okay.
It's a place where you live out your faith, reflecting what God is doing in your life.
Okay. I'm starting to see the appeal of his message.
Yeah.
It's not about compartmentalizing your life,
Nope.
but like about integrating your faith into everything you do.
But how do you actually do that?
Right.
It's a great question.
How do you balance your professional responsibilities with this desire to like live out your faith?
Yeah, that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Campbell introduces this concept of having 2 jobs.
2 jobs.
2 jobs, our paid work,
Okay.
and the job Jesus gave us
Correct.
to make disciples.
Oh, I see what he's saying.
Right.
But isn't there a tension there?
Definitely.
Like, how do you reconcile those 2 things?
Yeah.
Especially in a workplace that might not be, you know, overtly faith-friendly.
Yeah, Campbell acknowledges that tension for sure. And he offers a solution.
Yeah.
Being intentional about integrating your faith into your work life.
Okay.
And he doesn't just leave it as this vague idea.
Yeah.
He actually developed a tool for it.
Did he really?
He calls it the intentionality map, or IMP for short.
Intentionality map? Sounds kind of cool. What's that all about?
It's basically a framework for understanding the spiritual landscape of your workplace.
The spiritual landscape.
Yeah, it helps you identify where people are at in their spiritual journeys
Oh.
and then figure out how to engage with them in a way that's both authentic
Right.
and respectful.
So instead of just hoping for like random spiritual conversations,
Right.
you're actually mapping out your workplace and approaching people strategically.
Exactly. He's all about being intentional.
Okay. I'm already getting some ideas here. Tell me more about these categories on the map.
Okay, so he breaks it down into 5 categories.
Okay.
Apathetic, beginning to search, confessing, developing, and excelling.
Wow. 5 categories.
And each category represents a different stage of spiritual openness. And Campbell gives specific guidance on how to interact with people in each of these groups.
Okay, I'm hooked. So we've got this successful businessman who's also deeply committed to his faith.
Yeah.
And has this practical advice on how to integrate the two. I am ready to dive into these IMP categories and see how this all works in practice.
Awesome.
What's up first?
Okay, so let's jump into that first category on the intentionality map.
Right.
The apathetic category.
Okay, the apathetic folks.
Yeah, and this might sound counterintuitive.
Okay.
But Campbell actually suggests that you treat everyone as if they fall into this category.
Really?
At least initially.
So like you're assuming that everyone is closed off to faith.
It's not really about being pessimistic or anything. Yeah. It's more about setting realistic expectations and avoiding judgment.
Right, because I could see how going in with the assumption that everyone is apathetic could be kind of discouraging.
Yeah, for sure.
Like you're already setting yourself up for failure.
Exactly. And remember, the goal isn't to like convert everyone on day one.
Right.
It's more about building those genuine relationships.
Okay.
And creating a space where conversations about faith can happen organically.
Okay, I can see that. So it's about building that foundation first.
Exactly.
But how do you even start to build those relationships?
Yeah.
Especially with people who seem totally indifferent or even hostile to faith.
That's a great question. Campbell believes in the power of authenticity.
Authenticity, okay.
He says that living out your faith consistently, even in subtle ways, can actually spark the curiosity of even the most apathetic person.
So it's about like walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Exactly. It's those little things that make a difference.
Okay, like what?
Like treating everyone with respect, being honest in your dealings, showing genuine concern for others.
Yeah, those things definitely stand out.
Especially in a work culture that can often feel, cutthroat and competitive.
Yeah, for sure. So those actions speak louder than words.
Yeah.
But what about those bigger conversations about faith? Like when is the right time to bring those up?
That's a good question. Campbell advises caution.
Okay.
Especially in the early stages of a relationship.
Okay.
He uses this analogy of a bridge.
Okay, a bridge.
You need to make sure the bridge of the relationship is strong enough to handle the weight of those deeper conversations.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So you can't just force intimacy or rush into these sensitive topics.
Right. You have to earn the right to have those conversations.
Exactly. So once that bridge is built, then you can start to explore those deeper waters.
Exactly. Okay. So let's move on to the next category.
Yeah.
Beginning to search.
Okay. Beginning to search.
These are the people who are starting to explore spirituality, but haven't necessarily embraced Christianity.
Okay.
They're kind of open, but not quite sure what they believe yet.
Yeah. I know some people like that.
And actually, Campbell shares a story about a colleague of his named Charlie, who had a really big impact on Campbell's own spiritual journey.
Oh, I always love hearing personal stories. It makes these concepts so much more relatable.
Totally. So what was Charlie like?
Yeah.
Well, Campbell describes him as a successful salesman who was really open about his faith.
Okay.
But he wasn't pushy at all or preachy.
Okay.
He just lived out his beliefs in a way that made Campbell curious.
See, that's so key, right? It's not about forcing your beliefs on others.
Right.
It's about living in a way that invites those questions. And opens up the possibility for a genuine dialogue.
Yeah, Campbell calls this positive disruption.
Positive disruption, okay.
It's like you're challenging people's assumptions and expectations, but without being confrontational.
Yeah, because I could see how being too different could push people away.
Yeah, especially in a professional setting where there's this pressure to conform.
Exactly.
Right, but that's where the positive part comes in.
Okay.
Campbell emphasizes being genuine and kind and respectful. In his own experience, it was Charlie's genuine interest in him as a person that really broke down those barriers.
That makes sense. So it's about building that relationship first and then letting the faith conversations flow naturally from there.
Exactly.
Not the other way around.
Right. And it's also about being a resource for those who are exploring.
Okay, yeah.
Like maybe share books or articles or even personal experiences that have been meaningful to you.
So you're not trying to be the expert. Just a fellow traveler on the journey.
Exactly.
I like that. Okay, so we've talked about the apathetic folks and those who are beginning to search.
Yeah.
What about those who are already Christians?
Yeah, good question.
Like, how does the IMAP guide our interactions with them?
So that brings us to the confessing category.
Okay, confessing.
These are the people who profess faith, but might not be actively living it out.
Okay, so they say they believe, but their actions don't necessarily match up.
Exactly. And Campbell has a rather striking term for them.
Does he? What is it?
He calls them the chosen frozen.
You chosen frozen. Okay, I've never heard that before. What does he mean by that?
It's like he's highlighting the untapped potential in this group.
Okay.
They've chosen Christ, right? But their faith might be kind of stagnant or dormant. It's not about judging them,
Right.
but understanding where they're at
Yeah.
and finding ways to maybe rekindle that flame.
Okay, so how do you approach someone who might be in this chosen frozen category?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Is it about encouraging them to get more involved in church activities or something?
It could be, but Campbell suggests starting with a gentle inquiry
Okay.
about their personal faith journey.
Okay.
Just kind of see where they're at.
Yeah.
And he even points out that some confessing Christians might actually be more apathetic,
Interesting.
meaning they grew up in a religious environment,
Yeah.
but they haven't really personally embraced the faith.
So they're going through the motions, but their heart's not really in it.
Right, exactly. So how do you figure out where someone really stands?
Yeah, it seems like a delicate balance.
It is. Campbell recommends focusing on building trust.
Oh?
And showing genuine interest in their story. You might invite them to activities that have deepened your own faith, like a Bible study or a service project, but without any pressure or judgment.
Yeah, just kind of meet them where they are and invite them to take a step forward,
Exactly.
rather than making them feel guilty or inadequate.
All right. He shares a story about a guy named Paul
Okay.
who started a casual book discussion group at his workplace. It was a low-pressure way to open up conversations about faith
Yeah.
and create that sense of community.
That's a great example. It's not about these grand gestures. It's about creating those small, safe spaces where faith can be explored and discussed openly.
Exactly. Okay, so we've covered apathetic, beginning to search, and confessing.
Okay. What's next on the intentionality map? Okay, so we've talked about the apathetic folks.
Yeah.
Those beginning to search.
Uh-huh.
And the confessing Christians who might be kind of stuck.
Right, the chosen frozen.
Yeah. Where do we go from here on the intentionality map?
Now we're getting to the exciting part.
Okay.
The developing Christians.
All right, the developing Christians. Tell me about them.
These are the people who are actively growing in their faith, and they're hungry to learn more.
Okay, so they're engaged and want to grow.
Exactly. And Campbell uses these great analogies to describe them.
Okay, like what?
He says they're like sponges,
Okay.
always soaking up information
Yeah.
and looking for ways to apply it to their lives.
I know some people like that.
Oh.
Always learning.
Yeah. And he also compares them to soldiers.
Soldiers.
Yeah, committed to following the commands of their leader.
So in this case, their leader is Jesus.
Exactly. They're all in.
I love those analogies. So they're engaged, committed, ready to put their faith into action.
Yes.
So how can we best support and encourage these developing Christians?
Well, Campbell really stresses the importance of helping them deepen their personal relationship with God.
Okay, that makes sense. But how?
He encourages them to prioritize two key things:
Okay, what are they?
spending time in the Bible
Okay.
and developing a consistent prayer life.
Yeah, those are like foundational practices for any Christian, right?
Absolutely foundational. And Campbell has some really interesting insights about both of them.
Like what?
Well, he describes the Bible as a supernatural book,
Okay, a supernatural book.
a source of guidance and wisdom and comfort that's relevant for every single part of life.
I like that. It's not just for Sundays.
Right.
So it's like a guide for daily living.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he encourages reading it not just as a historical document,
Yeah.
but as a personal letter from God.
Oh, that's a beautiful way to look at it.
It is, right? It takes the Bible out of the realm of like dusty old text and makes it something personal and alive.
Okay, so what about prayer?
So for Campbell, prayer isn't just about going to God when you need something. Okay.
It's about cultivating an ongoing relationship with him.
Okay, so like a constant conversation.
Exactly. He encourages being honest with God
Okay.
about our struggles,
Yeah.
our doubts, our hopes.
Being real with God.
Right, not putting on a pious front or anything.
Yeah. Authenticity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's also about taking time to listen.
Oh, yeah, that's important.
Listening for God's voice.
Yeah. So it's not just us talking at God.
All right.
It's about being open to hearing what he has to say to us.
Yeah, and God speaks in lots of different ways,
Right. Through scripture.
Yeah.
Through other people. Through the circumstances of our lives.
Exactly. It's about being tuned in.
I like that. Campbell also talks about the importance of community, right?
Yes. He encourages these developing Christians to connect with other believers, to find community and support.
So like joining small groups, going to church, that kind of thing.
Yeah. He also suggests getting involved in service projects, giving back to the community. Okay. I like that idea. And he even talks about creating a work family.
Oh, interesting. Like a network of believers at work.
Yeah, a support system at work.
Yeah, people who can offer encouragement and accountability.
Having that support system can make such a difference.
Total.
Especially when you're trying to live out your faith in a challenging environment.
Right. And that ties back into Campbell's concept of having 2 jobs.
Oh, yeah. Our paid work and our calling to make disciples.
Exactly.
So he's saying that by intentionally living out our faith at work,
yeah,
we naturally create opportunities to influence others.
right. We become like living examples.
That's inspiring.
Yeah.
But I can also see how it could be kind of intimidating.
Yeah, for sure.
Like how you overcome that fear of sharing your faith.
That's a real thing. And Campbell acknowledges that fear.
Okay, so he gets it.
Yeah, he talks about the fear of rejection, the fear of coming across as judgmental, the fear of messing things up.
Those are all valid fears?
They are. But he offers this powerful antidote to fear.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What is it?
Gratitude.
Gratitude. Okay. How does that help with fear?
Well, he encourages us to think about all the ways God has blessed us.
Okay.
And then to consider how sharing those blessings with others could have this ripple effect.
Oh, I see. It shifts your focus outward.
Exactly. And he also reminds us that we're not ultimately responsible for the outcome.
Right.
Our job is to be faithful in planting seeds and then trust that God will bring the growth.
That's a freeing thought.
It is, right? It takes the pressure off of us to have all the answers.
Yeah.
Or to single-handedly convert everyone we meet. It does. We're just called to be faithful to plant those seeds.
Okay, so we've talked about the apathetic, the beginning to search, the confessing, and the developing Christians. That leaves one last category on the intentionality map, right?
Right, the excelling Christians.
Okay, the excelling Christians. Who are they?
These are the people who are not only growing in their own faith, but they're also actively sharing it with others.
Okay, so they're walking the walk and talking the talk.
Exactly. Campbell describes them as being full-time in their commitment to being about their Father's business.
I love that phrase. So they're fully dedicated to living out their faith in every area of their lives.
Exactly. And he encourages us to find those people in our workplaces.
Okay.
To learn from them.
Yeah.
And to partner with them in their mission.
Okay, so find those mentors, those role models.
Exactly. Learn from the best.
But how do you identify these excelling Christians? What are you looking for?
Well, Campbell suggests looking for clues.
Okay.
Like, are they always lending out books?
Okay.
Sharing articles? Do they quietly pray before meals?
Yeah.
Are they known for their integrity and compassion?
Those are good signs.
Yeah. And he jokingly says, hang out with the E's.
Hang out with the E's. I love that.
Right.
Simple but profound.
Surround yourself with those who inspire you.
Yes.
And challenge you to grow.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
But even with these excelling Christians, Campbell cautions against being insensitive or pushy.
Right, absolutely, especially when it comes to sharing our faith at work.
Yeah, it's got to be done with sensitivity and respect.
Exactly. He has a whole chapter in his book about sensing the sensitivities.
Okay. Sensing the sensitivities. Tell me more about that.
It's all about being mindful of people's backgrounds,
Okay.
their experiences, their potential vulnerabilities.
Because not everyone is going to be receptive to conversations about faith.
Right, right. And he encourages us to ask ourselves a crucial question before we dive into those deeper conversations.
Okay, what's the question?
Do I have permission?
Permission.
Yeah, it's about making sure the other person feels safe and respected.
I like that. So it's not just about barging in with your own agenda.
Yeah.
It's about respecting their boundaries.
Yeah. So you might ask something like, would you be open to talking about this further?
Okay.
Or is this a topic you're comfortable discussing?
Yeah. Yeah, those are good ways to gauge their openness.
Exactly. It shifts the focus from our agenda to their needs.
Yeah, creating that space for genuine dialogue.
Right. It's not about forcing anything.
So what about leaders? Like, how can they create a culture where faith can be shared appropriately in the workplace?
That's a great question. Campbell has some really helpful advice for leaders.
Okay.
He says that any faith-based activities should be optional.
Okay, so no pressure.
Right, and that employees should never feel pressured or discriminated against based on their beliefs.
That makes sense. Everyone should feel respected and included.
Exactly. He also encourages delegating leadership roles in those activities to those who are not in positions of authority.
Okay, so it doesn't feel like it's coming from the top down.
Right, it avoids that sense of coercion.
Okay, so it's all about creating that culture of inclusion and respect.
Yes, where faith can be shared authentically,
Mm-hmm.
but without any pressure or obligation.
Wow, this has been such an insightful deep dive.
It has, right?
I love how Campbell takes this topic of faith and work, which can often feel kind of taboo,
Yeah.
and he gives this practical, actionable advice for how to navigate it.
It's so refreshing.
He doesn't shy away from the challenges,
No,
but he offers this really hopeful vision
he does.
for what's possible when we intentionally integrate our faith into every part of our lives.
And he reminds us that we're not just cogs in a machine.
Right.
We're children of God.
Called to make a difference in the world.
Exactly, and it starts right where we are.
So to our listener, we really encourage you to reflect on what we've talked about today.
Yeah.
And think about how Campbell's insights might challenge you to rethink your own approach to work.
Like, are you viewing your job just as a way to make money
Yeah.
or as a platform for living out your purpose?
Are you open to seeing God at work in your workplace?
Yeah.
Even in those unexpected places and through those unexpected people.
You're not alone on this journey.
You have a community of believers cheering you on,
And you have a God who is always with you.
guiding your steps and empowering your efforts.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Pages to Dialogues. We hope you enjoyed our discussion and found valuable insights to apply to your life. If you did, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel, Pages to Dialogues, for more thought-provoking dialogues on Christian books. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. We'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback on this episode. Please leave a comment below and let's continue the conversation. If you know someone who would benefit from our discussions, please share this episode with them. Your support means the world to us. Finally, if you appreciated this episode, please give us a thumbs up and a like. It helps us reach more people and continue creating content that inspires and uplifts. Thanks again for listening, and we look forward to engaging with you on our next episode of Pages to Dialogues.